We're all chasing happiness, right? We think that big win, that new job, or maybe the perfect relationship is going to be the thing that finally makes us happy for good. But what if our whole way of thinking about happiness is just wrong? Let's start with the one thing everyone dreams about.
I mean, come on. This is the ultimate fantasy, isn't it? Millions of dollars just falling into your lap. The freedom to do anything, go anywhere. Surely that has to be the ticket to permanent bliss. And believe it or not, psychologists have been totally fascinated by this exact question for decades.
So this brings us to this classic study from way back in 1978. Researchers got a group of recent lottery winners, people who just had this massive windfall, and they compared their happiness levels to a regular control group. Now, you'd expect the winners to be off the charts happy, right? But the reality was kind of shocking. After that initial excitement wore off, their happiness levels were almost identical to the people who hadn't won a dime. Wild.
And look, this wasn't just some fluke, a one-off finding. This result gets right to the heart of what we all think makes us happy. It suggests that our gut instinct, that these big external events are the key to lasting joy, might be completely off base.
So this tendency for our happiness to kind of snap back to our default setting, no matter what good or bad things happen to us, well, it's a really well-documented and powerful process in psychology. It's the reason why the thrill of a big achievement and even the pain of a major setback, both of them inevitably fade over time.
Okay, so what is this crazy powerful force? Well, scientists have a name for it, hedonic adaptation. But honestly, there's a much better way to think about it, a metaphor that perfectly captures that feeling of running and running, but getting nowhere.
To put it really simply, it's our brain's incredible ability to just get used to stuff. That new car you were so excited about, that promotion, that bigger house, sure, they give you a nice little boost for a while, but our minds are so quick to adjust. That new, better reality just becomes the new normal, and that emotional high, it just wears off.
And hey, this is not some newfangled discovery. Thinkers and writers have been pointing this out about us for centuries. Dostoevsky absolutely nailed it here. We are just built to adapt. It doesn't matter if it's good fortune or tough times. It's just kind of baked into our programming.
And this is where the treadmill idea is so perfect. Imagine you get a raise at work. You feel amazing. You take a few big happy steps forward on this happiness treadmill. But then, the treadmill just speeds up to match your new pace. And pretty soon, you're right back where you started emotionally, needing another raise to get that same little boost. You're always moving, but you never actually get ahead.
So, if we adopt to good things so quickly, why does it feel like negative things, a bad review, an argument, stick with us for so much longer? Well, it turns out our brains are not created equal when it comes to good and bad. There's a built-in bias.
If you think about it from an evolutionary point of view, it makes perfect sense. For our ancestors to survive, it was way more important to notice the predator hiding in the bushes than it was to stop and enjoy a pretty sunset. Paying super close attention to threats and dangers is what kept you alive. So yeah, our brains evolved to give way more weight to the negative stuff.
And you see this bias playing out all the time in our lives. A single piece of criticism can totally wipe out a dozen compliments. A bad first impression, so hard to shake. And the research is clear. The sting from a bad day often lingers into the next, while that glow from a really good day, it usually fades by morning. It's simple, really. Bad is just stronger than good in our minds.
Now, in our relationships, this bias is incredibly powerful. There's a famous researcher, John Gottman, who found that for a marriage to really thrive, the ratio of positive to negative interactions has to be about 5-to-1. That means it takes 5 good moments, a hug, a compliment, a shared laugh, to balance out the damage of just one negative moment. That's the negativity bias, right there in action.
So, while modern psychology has given us these cool terms like hedonic treadmill and negativity bias, the actual core idea that chasing these fleeting good feelings is basically a trap is an ancient piece of wisdom. It's something people have understood for thousands of years, all across the world.
And that brings us over to Eastern philosophy, which has been wrestling with this exact problem for a very, very long time. And their perspective is surprisingly, and I think profoundly, similar.
Okay, so when you first read this quote from the Buddha, it sounds completely backwards. I mean, how can a pleasant feeling be painful? It just goes against everything we think we know. But there's a really deep psychological insight buried in there.
See, the teaching isn't that pleasure itself is a bad thing. Not at all. The problem is our reaction to it.
Because pleasant feelings never last, our attachment to them, our constant craving for more, creates this endless cycle of wanting and then being disappointed. That constant chasing, that's the source of suffering.
And this wasn't just an idea in the East. Western thinkers were wrestling with the very same thing, using their own powerful metaphors long before anyone ever said the words hedonic treadmill.
I mean, listen to this. St. Augustine called our endless desire a perpetual rack or horsemill. It's almost the exact same image as the treadmill, isn't it? This machine where you are constantly working, constantly striving, driven by a desire that can never really be satisfied, and all the while you're just staying in the same place.
Okay, so if we're all stuck on this psychological treadmill, is that it? Are we just doomed to run in place forever? And the answer is no. Thankfully, we can't really get off the treadmill, but what modern psychology has shown us is that we can learn to control the speed. We can actually manage our own adaptation.
The goal here is not to get rid of adaptation. I mean, it's actually really useful. It helps us recover from negative things. The key is to become intentional about it. We can use specific strategies to slow down how fast we adapt to the good things, which lets us savor and appreciate them for way longer.
So how do we actually do that? Well, research from psychologists like Sonia Lyubomirsky gives us a pretty clear toolkit. It comes down to 3 main strategies. 1. Introduce variety, so the good things in your life don't just become boring routine. 2. Cultivate surprise, because new, unexpected things keep our brains engaged. And 3, and this one might be the most powerful of all, is to consciously direct your attention.
And directing your attention, that's an active process. It means doing things like practicing gratitude, literally taking a moment to think about what you're thankful for. That keeps those good things from becoming invisible. It also means savoring. So when something good is happening, you pause and you consciously soak it all in. Think of these practices as the brakes on that hedonic treadmill. They stop the good stuff from just fading into the background.
And all of this really leads us to a final, crucial question. We tend to think about happiness as a destination, right? Something you find, like a winning lottery ticket. But what if the science and all this ancient wisdom are right? What if happiness isn't a destination at all, but instead, it's a skill you can build and a practice you choose to do, day in and day out?